Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name is Cameron, and on today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the differences between E.H. Taylor small batch and single barrel. Stay tuned. All right, so like many people do, I began my bourbon journey by hunting down all of the allocated Buffalo Trace products I could possibly get my hands on. And what better product than E.H. Taylor? It's got the fancy tube, which I absolutely love. I was originally a Scotch drinker, still have it from time to time, but the tubes on E.H. Taylor sort of harkened back to my Scotch days. It's got the nice tall bottle, the amazing branding and labeling. Everything that's going on with the E.H. Taylor line in terms of presentation is just stunning and beautiful, and I love it. And yes, it's super easy to make fun of and call people taters for wanting things that come in tubes. I get it. But at the end of the day, it's hard to tell somebody who hasn't had this stuff or any of the other allocated Buffalo Trace products to skip it and go for something else. We all kind of have to find our way through, the allocated madness and hunting these bottles down. And once we've had them, I think then we can start to make judgment calls on whether or not we're going to continue hunting, continue paying outrageous prices, or move on to something else. Now, this video is all about finding the differences between the small batch offering and the single barrel offering, because, when I started drinking this stuff and I got my hands on my first small batch, I think I got it at the MSRP, basically like $40 here in Ohio. And this is before the lines got crazy in October of 2020. And all of the madness sort of hit its peak and has been riding that peak since then. I was able to find this on the shelf every couple of weeks, and I would buy the small batch, and I really enjoyed it. I think I liked it more than Blanton's, more than Eagle Rare. It was basically my go-to Buffalo Trace product. But then a buddy of mine said that he had a single barrel. He didn't want to share any of it. And that's fine, because he wasn't going to see any more of that anytime soon. But I started wondering, is it really worth the upcharge to get the single barrel offering? Now, some dumb freaking Forbes article came out in August of 2020. And I'm not going to say the author's name. I don't even know who he is, to be honest with you. But some line in that article calling E.H. Taylor single barrel, God's gift to earth, said that at $235, it would still be a steal. Let's cut that shit out right now, please, because that is not the case, all right? I'll just go ahead and tell you that before we get to the actual review. Don't pay $235 for this stuff. On secondary recently, it has been spiking to between $190 and $210, and that's not for a store pick single barrel. I can't understand that, okay? And I'll be totally honest with you. I paid $150 for my E.H. Taylor single barrel off the secondary market, and that's because I was curious, I was willing to pay the upcharge, and yeah, maybe someone else is gonna feel curious and willing to pay it at $200, but I just think at some point we've got to cap this stuff because this is getting crazy. Now, the store picks tend to go for double the price of a normal single barrel, so we're over $300 at this point. And I guess if you know the store and you know they make good picks, maybe that's worth it to you. But again, the goal of this video, I'm going to stop trashing Buffalo Trace right now and secondary stuff. The goal of this right now is to find out what the differences are and what, in my opinion, the upcharge could or should be and where we should kind of cap that when we're thinking about paying more than MSRP for the single barrel. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and stop right now. Let's get straight into the tasting. Let's talk about this stuff. Both of these are bottled in bond, as the E.H. Taylor line is. 50% ABV, a nice drinkable ABV, and probably my favorite from the Buffalo Trace line besides some of the, barrel proof offerings. So this is the small batch. Let's go ahead and start here. All right, so right away, there was a little bit of ethanol on this. For better or worse, a little bit of ethanol there, that typical Buffalo Trace honey note, that dusty corn grain type note on the nose. Also some light fruitiness in here. Sometimes with this Mash Bill 1 stuff, this is the low rye Buffalo Trace Mash Bill, I tend to get some grape notes. I'm not getting a ton of that right now. That could change after I taste this, but I am getting plenty of that Buffalo Trace cinnamon, which is a little bit of a different cinnamon spice than other brands. Yeah, so a good combination of that dusty corn, that sweet honey, that cinnamon. There's also some vanilla icing here. Yeah, let's try it on the palate. The thing that E.H. Taylor does so well with the small batch offering, which for me differentiates it from Eagle Rare, is it has that extra spice kick in there. That cinnamon, that pop of spice up front that lingers and carries into the finish, into the back of the throat. That is a differentiating factor and why I like this pour so much, even though it is still a little rough around the edges. It's a little bit of that corn grain, cheap, young note and a little bit of ethanol, but by and large, it just packs more of a punch. Blanton's further refines that, I think, even though it is mash bill 2. I'll talk about them sort of on the same plane. It further refines it, slightly lower proof, and I think that's why people like it. It smooths out the rough edges of E.H. Taylor small batch just a bit. But I really like this as a go-to sipper. It's great at MSRP. I come back to the nose. I get even more of that corn grain type note in here, that cheap young thing. But I am getting a little bit more fruitiness now. Yeah, maybe some cherry, maybe some honey, like honey drizzled cherry, or maybe a little bit of grapiness in here. Yeah, and a slight perfume note. That's the final thing I'll say. I get a little bit of like grandma's perfume on the small batch. All right, so by and large, for me, this is just an advanced Buffalo Trace. It's at a better proof, but it still retains the youth, honestly, of Buffalo Trace, the standard offering from the distillery. So yeah, for me, the small batch, I could pay up to $50. I wouldn't pay the $75 that people ask for on secondary for this. Even locally here at $65 on like the local secondary market in Ohio, I still wouldn't buy this stuff. So I'm gonna have to stick around MSRP at a maximum of $50 here. All right, let's move on to the single barrel now. Again, like I said, I paid $150 for this because I had some FOMO. I wanted to get my hands on it and see what all the hype was about. I actually bought it after that crazy Forbes article came out. And thankfully, when the article came out, we collectively laughed at it and didn't actually spike the price up. Some people I remember seeing on the secondary groups, they tried to jack the price up to like $225. Pretty darn close to that $235 that the article said was a steal. And nobody bought at that price. So like, that was one of those rare moments where I was like, thank you, secondary market, for not ruining this even more. You know, at least we all took a collective stand against the bullshit. All right, so let's go ahead and try the single barrel now and see what we get. Okay, so it is different, right? And I remember reading articles as I was trying to figure out, should I buy this or not? People saying, oh, it's not that different. It's really just the same as a small batch. I can't even tell the difference. And I went through Reddit reviews and different whiskey websites and all that kind of stuff. No, it's different. It's significantly different. And I know it's a single barrel product. They're all going to have their own characteristics. You might get a better or a worse barrel, but it's better here. Well, maybe not better. Maybe different is the right word. Maybe that's what I should say. Basically, what's going on here is that the single barrel is completely rounding out all of the rough edges of the small batch. So the ethanol kick that is on the small batch is nowhere to be found on the single barrel. That sort of pop of cinnamon spice that you can get on the nose of the small batch and on the palate, which really kind of keeps it interesting and I don't know, and helps it a little bit because it is sort of a young tasting product. That cinnamon is nowhere to be found on the nose either. It's really just integrated into the body of the whiskey with the single barrel. And one thing you get here is that sweet Buffalo Trace oak, if you know what I'm talking about. They managed to keep all of the oak funk or characteristics or woodiness in their whiskey extremely sweet. And this single barrel has a lot of that on the nose. When you go back to the small batch, yeah, nowhere to be found. It's just all of those cheap, sharp, young notes here. And you don't really, it's almost like that's a top layer that you can't get underneath to kind of find out what's below it on the nose because there's too many sharp edges. You know what I mean? Whereas the single barrel, yeah, you can automatically sort of see right through the whiskey and evaluate the brighter flavors, the mid-range flavors, and the darker flavors all at once. So I don't know. It's just a more refined and a better product. Yeah, the sweetness is insane on the single barrel. The vanilla icing note of the small batch is cranked up to 100 here. Tons of grape notes now. Like, they were faint in the small batch. That's very present here on the single barrel. Yeah, that honey, the vanilla, the grape, all of those great Buffalo Trace notes, they're just wonderful here. Let's try it on the palate. I hate to say it, but it's smooth. You know, the one thing about the single barrel, in some ways it lacks presence. It seems a little watery compared to the small batch, and that's because the small batch has those more aggressive young notes in it. So that's why, I mean, yes, I think the single barrel is better, but it's almost a mood thing. It's almost like, well, if I want something, you know, with a little bit more bite, I'm going to go with the small batch. But if I want something more refined, more elegant, I guess, if you want to call it that, then I'm going to go with the single barrel. And yes, the single barrel is sweeter. So if you want something a little bit sweeter, this particular barrel, at least, is sweeter than the small batch. Yeah, it's just a great combination of things. Like, it's really, when you think about the Buffalo Trace line, it's the first time as you're kind of going up the price ladder, right? You have Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, E.H. Taylor Small Batch. You get to the single barrel here in Mash Bill 1. It's the first time you get to taste some age. Even Eagle Rare, like, yeah, it's 10 years old, but it's like flat cherry cola with a little bit of oak mixed in. This one actually has some refined oak characteristic to it. So it's the first time you get that with this mash bill, and I really like it. And if I'm being honest with you, I've put this next to Elmer T. I've put it next to Hancock's, Rock Hill, Blanton's. It's honestly my favorite non-barrel proof product from Buffalo Trace. So am I hyping it up a little bit right now? Yes. Yes, I am. Is it worth $150? No. No, it's not. What I like about it is that in terms of secondary prices, let's just talk about that. The E.H. Taylor single barrel, for me, is a good value in that landscape. In the landscape of Elmer T being $220, of Rock Hill being $250. Like, this is a better option than both of those, in my opinion, taste and value-wise. But I would say, doing this comparison right now, the most I would want to pay for this single barrel is like $70. I think I could see going up to $70 here and being like, but if you get a good single barrel, then you're really going to be stoked about it. If it's a bad single barrel, maybe you feel a little disappointed, but odds are it's going to be so hard to find one of these that if you did see it at $70, you've just got to buy it, you know? So I don't know how to feel about this. They are mood pours. The single barrel is definitely more refined. I would love to try a store pick of this and see, you know, what a honey barrel of E.H. Taylor single barrel is like. And I'm sure it would be amazing. But even my run-of-the-mill single barrel is remarkably more refined than the small batch. And I just think we need to be more clear about this, right? I mean, you see all of these reviews and these Reddit threads and all this other crap with people trying to say that they're not that different. No, they are that different. Again, it is single barrel. It could be random, whatever you're tasting, but I just have to assume that the barrels they're picking for this are pretty decent barrels. That's all I've got for this video. Please don't pay $235 for an E.H. Taylor single barrel. If you have FOMO and you want it at $150, buy it, taste it. You'll probably realize that it's not worth getting another one at that price. But I think, you know, it's hard to tell someone not to do that if they haven't had it and there's nowhere they're going to find it in their area, which is the case for me here in Ohio. But I can pretty assuredly say I'm not going to be buying another one of these at secondary price. And if that means that I don't have one of these on my shelf, so be it. It is what it is. That's all I've got today. If you like the video, drop a like, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification to find out when new stuff comes out and when I'm going live. If you have any feedback or anything you'd like me to review, drop me a comment below. Send me an email at drumsanddrams@gmail.com. Otherwise, I will see you next time. That's all I've got. And I'm going to end with this final sip of E.H. Taylor Single Barrel. Cheers.